Hey folks, Charlie McGee here on Noongar Budja, means Noongar country, here in the Menang Pippelman region of Western Australia. And I just want to start by acknowledging the elders, past, present, and emerging, and just paying the respects to the Indigenous people of this land. And something that I love to do on these virtual streams is to just try and put out there for you to acknowledge, where you're coming from, where you're at, whose country you're on, whose elders you'd like to pay respects to. We are coming to you for the Reading Landscape documentary celebration crowdfunder extravaganza. We've got an amazing few people here tonight to give you the heads up around what Reading Landscape is, how it ties into permaculture, how it can help us in this present time that we're in, and how it's helped people for thousands of years. I mean, Reading Landscape really goes right back to the earliest cultures on this planet. And so that's why, again, I invite you to write in the comments, to say where you're at, whose country you're on, whether you're in Australia or overseas. If you know the name of the Indigenous crew that are from the country where you are, feel free to put it in the comments. Let us know where you are. And let's start by paying those respects. I'm going to introduce some of the crew soon, but for a second, while people just roll in, I thought I'd play some tunes, because Reading Landscape is obviously about pattern recognition. And in permaculture, that's a really important principle is using patterns and designing from patterns to details. And music is a pattern language. So some of you who might have heard my band Formidable Vegetable would know that I've turned permaculture principles into songs to help with our pattern recognition of this really valuable knowledge. So I'm going to start with a tune all about observation. The first principle of permaculture, of course, is observe and interact, which is where Reading Landscape really starts. So this song's called Look Around. Feel free to share in the comments. Let us know where you're at, where you're coming from, where you're streaming from. And welcome to Reading Landscape. Everything you need is right in front of you. When you learn to see, good things come to you. All you have to do is stop and take a look around. Before you intervene, just don't do anything. Yeah, come to all your senses. They'll tell you everything. First you have to learn to stop and take a look around. Yeah, take a look around. Listen to the sound. Why not take a whiff? You'll see much better if you use more than just your eyes. Now you gotta take a step outside, yeah. Ooh, if you wanna know what your soil is like and what is gonna grow. But first you have to learn to stop and take a look around. Yeah, just take a look around. Get your hands into the ground. Don't be scared of the dirt. It isn't gonna hurt, and if you're brave, hey, try the flavor. Just take a handful of your land and give it a squeeze in your hand. Then check out the display. If it stays together, it's probably clay. But if it falls apart, it's sand. At the point of that is all you gotta do is take a look Take a look, read your landscape like a book, interact, low impact, and get your feedback. When you take a little look around, yeah, well, abundance will abound now. Because the problem is the solution. It just depends on your perception. Gotta change yourself before you change the world now. Yeah, just take a look around. On the inside and the out. Because when you observe yourself, you see everything else. Make good use of it now. Thanks, folks. Welcome to Reading Landscape, the documentary crowdfunder celebration that we're having here tonight. My name's Charlie McGee. If you've just joined us, we're just acknowledging the country where we're on. I'm on Noongar Pippelman country here in Western Australia. And pretty soon, I'm going to introduce our champions for this evening, filmmaker Dave Meagher and producer of the Reading Landscape Project, Dan Palmer, and of course, the permaculture co-originator, David Holmgren. But first of all, I just want to let you know about the exciting raffle that we're doing tonight. This is an extravaganza in the true sense of the word, folks. We have a raffle. We have a permaculture book hamper with stacks of knowledge that you could have right in your eye reading holes. I don't even know what an eye reading hole is. I guess that's what these are. But if you pledge between now and the end of this live stream, you will go in the running. We'll pick a complete random number, so you have a chance to win the permaculture book hamper. Get on there, make a pledge. We're almost at the amount. We're trying to raise 35 grand tonight for the permaculture, the Reading Landscape documentary, and we're very, very close. So spread around, tell your friends, and put your name in for the raffle. Without further ado, that's enough ado from me. I'm going to introduce our hosts for this evening, educator and global permaculture activist Morag Gamble, and the legendary Gardening Australia host Costa Georgiadis. How you going, guys?
Hi, Charlie. That was an awesome song. What a fantastic way to kick us off for this Reading Landscape night tonight.
Thanks. I'll catch you later.
See you, Charlie.
Thanks a lot, Charlie. Great tune. Everyone's loving it. I've just been looking at the comments, and people couldn't have got off to a better start than a bit of formidable Charlie.
Woo!
Thank you. We'll see you a bit later for your next number.
I'll be back.
Yeah, and thanks everyone too who's already donated to get us to almost 35,000. It's been rolling in. I know even today there's been a couple of $1,000s that have come in too. So it's so close to having this amazing film fully funded. But we don't want to stop there, do we, Costa? It's like there's a stretch goal. There's a stretch goal of getting beyond the 35,000 to see if we can take the filmmakers out on country and maybe get some extra materials happening as well. So keep the donations rolling in. Thanks, everyone.
Exactly, Morag. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity we've got tonight, and I was inspired today because I was on a native plant nursery with someone who's grown up on this land up in northern Sydney, and I wanted to share this at the top because they were talking about what they've seen, the change they've seen in northwestern Sydney, and the fact that they've lived and observed this land, which is exactly the point of tonight when we get down to reading landscape, which I'm going to ask you that question. And they've been reading that landscape for a long time. And Malcolm said an interesting thing. He said, you know, I'm a historian. I look at the history of this land, and it's always been about taming this war narrative, this conflict, this fight, this battle against nature to tame it. And it really struck me because on the other hand, they were talking about how they sit and watch the pallid cuckoos, which eat the hairy grubs that climb on the native white cedar. And most people have the taming mentality where they go, what do we do with these grubs? What can I use to kill them? How can I spray them? How can I get rid of them? As opposed to actually sitting there and observing the landscape, reading what's going on, taking the time to see that it's the pallid cuckoo's food. And then they saw that the black-faced cuckoo shrike, they see it eating the stink beetles on their citrus. Whereas people are like, oh, how can I get rid of those? Again, we have to tame them, tame this land. And the king parrots, they eat the Mealia berries. So there's all this, and this is the essence of what David's going to speak to us about, I believe, which is observing and reading. Reading takes that time to sit and appreciate these patterns that are going on, and appreciate the links and the ties and the communication that's not happening in human language and human outcomes. So that was what I felt today. It was a nice lead into tonight.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, you know, I'm watching outside too here that I can see this beautiful mulberry tree that's starting to come out. And I know really soon as those fruits come out, I know the quails are about to start to fly in, and they've come all the way in from up near Papua New Guinea somewhere. And I've been here for long enough now to start to see the patterns as well of that. That as soon as that happens, it means the wet season is going to start to begin. And you know what I see with this whole kind of concept of reading the landscape, that when you begin to do it, you feel like you're at preschool. You know, you notice some things, but it's as you dive into the practice of it. And it's not just read it once to do a plan. It's this constant reading of the landscape and being in tune with it. And I'm known too to be a bit of a barefoot gardener, because there's something too about the sensing of the landscape, not just what you see, but, you know, what you hear, what you feel. Like through your feet, you can start to feel the moisture of the soil, the temperature, the softness of the soil. And that tells you so much about where you are in the season. So, you know, I love the fact that David's taking this time to actually document his way of seeing and reading the landscape. And I know that he talks about it being something that is multi-sensorial, and it's not just like reading a book. The landscape is this all different kinds of languages that you just need to immerse yourself in. Yeah, so fantastic. I'm trying to read the chat. I'm not quite as good as you at this, Costa, reading the chat at the same time as talking. Like, you're just the master at this. So if I go silent for a minute, that's what I'm trying to do.
Sort of a bit of multitasking. No, it's fantastic. Thanks everyone for the comments. I'm going to keep putting them up there as we roll along, and we really want you to feel a part of this, and we will be taking questions as the night rolls on. So you will be able to ask David and any of the other project participants, be that Dan, who you're going to meet, and David Meagher, and that way you can, as Morag said, this is about learning skills that you build on forever. And David's going to give us some vowels and consonants. I think that's how I'd like to think about it in terms of that language side, Morag. That you know, if David, through this work, and that's the whole idea of this project, to be able to get it up there so people can garner access to the vowels and the consonants, and then start to put it together. They already have some words, they have sentences, but they don't have that complete understanding. From David's point of view, he's been doing this and been building on his encyclopedic vocabulary of this kind of reading of landscape for 5 decades or more. And that's what excites me about tonight, that everyone here will be able to take away that real basic, support the distribution of the structure.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, like you're saying, it's the vowels and the consonants. It's kind of the core part of it, but that each and every one of us takes that and then brings in our own nuanced, local, contextual way of seeing it, because each single place is different, and that changes from year to year as well. So, just really noticing type, like seeing what the structure and the patterns of connection that David's talking about, and then find how you read those in our own places. I did happen to notice in the chat as we were talking before that there was a question from Kate. Hi, Kate McQuillan, about how to donate. And so the Reading Landscape website, thanks, Meg, for popping that up there in the chat too. So readinglandscape.org is where you can go in and track where our donations are tonight, and also to make your own pledge. Oh, look at that. Brilliant. You're a master at this.
Since you asked.
Thanks.
We've got to have it up there. No worries, Morag. No worries at all. Okay. So where will we start? Are we calling Dan up to play the video?
I think that's a really good spot to start. He's got a 2-minute teaser of what's happening in the film and where it's going. So that's oh, hiya, Dan. Welcome.
Hello, Dan.
Greetings.
It's lovely to have you here. Can you explain to everyone just, or do you want to do this? No, do it now. I think it's nice. You've arrived.
Here I am.
Explain how you're fitting into the project, because it's pretty exciting.
Sure thing. It is exciting, and it's so exciting to have this thing happening right now. So the inception story of how this whole project came to be was I was a student of permaculture. I was living in central Victoria. David Holmgren was a teacher of mine. I was reading his books. I went to the courses he ran, and over time I woofed at his place. I volunteered on Meliodora and learned from David and his partner Sue. And then by over the years, I moved from being a student of permaculture. Well, I'm still a student, but on top of that, I started to work professionally as a permaculture designer, educator, and so on. And part of that was me being engaged by folk to go out to their properties and support them in their journeys, hold their hand in the process of understanding their place and figuring out what to do, ultimately what to put where, and how to kind of entwine themselves, to thread themselves into the flow, the ebb and flow of a property. And we started in the Melbourne suburbs, and that I enjoyed that for a long time. I eventually got a little bored of working with rectangles, which is not to say that, it's such an important thing, and I still go back and work in that sphere sometimes, but I started to really get fascinated with small rural properties. So I'm starting to work on these properties, and David Holmgren's not too far away, and so I got to a point where I would invite David to come in and read a property as an early part of the process. And I still so clearly remember, in particular, the first time it happened, he came out and read a property called Yandoit Farm with my friends Michael and Lisa Jackson, and like 6 hours of walking around with David. Just my spinal cord was quivering for days afterwards. It just blew me away to realize what was possible in terms of unpacking and seeing into the deep space and time of a place, unpacking based on surface details, what's going on underneath in the past and the future. And I thought, holy shit, this is something that's possible. And I realized, of course, in the past, it wasn't optional. Like, either we were deeply plugged into the places in which we lived, as well as our communities, or we weren't. We didn't exist anymore. It's become optional. And so that native ability of a human has atrophied and away to almost nothing. And so I got really excited about the idea of being able to learn how to do this. At first, I just thought David was kind of a freak of nature, and he was an untouchable, and no one could do that. And I thought, hang on, it's just a skill. Like, he's just gotten good at it because he's practiced for decades. I could learn this too, and anyone can learn this. And as part of the process, we started to film what David was doing. In a pretty amateur way, I just do it on my phone or whatever, walking around. And then that gradually got to the point where I was like, hey, we should do something with this. And my dear friend and filmmaker, David Meagher, who we'll meet tonight, was in the mix, and we kind of connected the dots, and he started to come along. And then we got to the point where it was like, maybe we'll make a film about this. So it was quite an organic thing, and that's how it all got started. And now we're across the line, like, it's happening. We're committed to seeing it through. And yes, here we are.
Yeah. I just noticed a comment here from Michelle Fisher. wouldn't it be wonderful to see David collaborating with Indigenous cultural leaders to read the landscape at a biomimicry or other ecological professional, and it becomes irresistible watching? Well, I suppose, Michelle, that's exactly what Dan and David and Sue and everyone are wanting to do with this. Put it out there in front of multidisciplinary opportunities, let's say. What do you feel, Dan?
100%. Yeah. Yep.
And isn't that what you were saying, that possibly if you get across the line too, that you'd take your cameras out on country and start some conversations out there as well?
Yeah, yep. Something we're really passionate about and kind of actively engage with. And yeah, if the scope of the project, what we've done is sort of come up with something that enables us to create the film as a bare bones thing. But some of the things we have in mind are things like animations, but also some road trips, like getting out on country. And there's a few distant connections and reading different landscapes, including the possibility of doing exactly what you said, is getting David to walk around with some Indigenous readers of landscape.
Fantastic. That'd be an amazing part of this. Wow, really excited about that. Are you going to show you're going to show us the first couple of minutes, do you think?
Yeah, let's give it a go. Let's
Yeah, all
experiment
right.
on this new platform. But
so hang in there with us, everyone. Dan and I sort of just having a crack at getting this video up, but we're hopeful that it will work.
Okay, here we go. So share. Okay.
Paul Bishop, hello, mate, up there in Brizzy.
Okay, how are we going? Are we seeing that?
Here we go. Add to stream, and let me. Oops, hang on. Now, just what can we do? I've just got to get that. There we go. That's on the stream. I'll take Paul's comment off. And let's try that, Dan, and see how we go.
I'll just try making it full screen, Is it because it's currently small, is it? Yep. Okay. So does that work?
That's it.
Looks good.
Okay. We'll hit play and hopefully it works. We got sound?
Yes.
Obviously, we think of reading as reading a book, reading text, and landscape. We think of often at scale, but it can be anything from looking at landscape from the mountaintop right down to looking at the bugs crawling amongst the grasses. Reading obviously is using our visual sense, and in some ways that's the most potent, but of course other people hear the world, even the sense of smell and even taste, to taste plants, to taste the earth and understand the acidity. I use the term reading, but it really is all of our sensory capacities. In some ways, it's reawakening our ancestral capacities and even our basic animal nature. That the animal that does not observe and interact with its environment is very quickly dead. And yet in the modern world, we've become used to the idea that knowledge that will tell us what to do, that will inform our actions, comes from outside. And then in the modern world, especially, we have all of the mediated forms of knowledge that come to us through these secondary sources. And we've become so obsessed with that growth area and its possibilities that this ancestral animal ability and this more traditional learning from elders and that process, both of those have diminished. Everyone can read landscape to some degree, but most of us can get a hell of a lot better at it by just engaging directly with it, with curiosity, with asking questions, more than expecting answers.
Wow, that is a really concise and wonderful entry piece of filmmaking to give everyone watching there, watching tonight, a taste of it. Let us know what you thought of David and Dan's compilation there, because that is really, I mean, that's what we're doing every day, whittling things down to try and get them. And Morag, you're doing this all the time as well with your videography. And wow, Dan, congratulations. That sort of answered a lot of questions in a short 2 minutes, effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully done. And
And
credit to Dave Meagher.
And what I really loved too about it was that, you know, that last comment that David was talking about, that it's about the asking the questions, you know, and not necessarily expecting the answers, but just constantly being in that space of being curious, because there's always something to learn and always something new and always something different and interesting and unusual. And it's through that we become better designers and keep the design evolving. You know, this is what you've been talking about in making permaculture stronger the whole time. It's about how do we keep it alive, that the design is a living process. And that basically comes down to this skill in this constant observation. So I'm really excited to hear more from David too about, you know, the backgrounding for him in this. And I know I've got lots of questions I'd love to ask him. And maybe too, if you've got questions you want to ask David to keep them coming in the chat as well. That would be wonderful. And also two of our filmmakers. So we have Dan here, who's the producer, and we'll be joined too later on by the filmmaker Dave. But here's David. Welcome, David.
Hello, thank you. It's a bit embarrassing, all this talk focused on me. I'm just actually a boy from the suburbs who sort of grew up, you know, not necessarily with all these wonderful skills, but as Dan said, yeah, we can all learn to do this. So yeah, and thanks to Charlie for the incredibly appropriate song, of course, built around these very ideas, and Morag and Costa for all your comments, and Dan's reiteration of a little bit of his journey in the process. I thought I could sort of pack up. You know, you guys are.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, David. See ya. That was easy. That was your easiest event of the year. You can just pack up and have a cuppa.
Yeah, we can take over from here.
But I wanted to pick up on something you just said then about, I mean, you grew up in the suburbs, but yet here you are with this deep understanding of observation. I mean, there's a lot of people who are in that situation. They've grown up maybe a bit disconnected from the natural world. I mean, I also grew up in the suburbs of Melbourne, and, you know, on the outskirts of Melbourne, there was a lot of nature around. So I think there was this sort of a sense of that there. But I wonder for you, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you learnt yourself how to become such a keen observer and to notice. Like, did you walk with other people? Like, where did that skill come from?
Yeah, look, I suppose as you get older and the changes in the world, there is something that was different when a lot of us were young. And I suppose the first thing was being free to roam on the banks of the Swan River, going into caves, exploring the bush, making cubbies, all of those sorts of things, and that being embedded in the outdoors. But I didn't really have, you know, elders, parents of great deep connection to the land or anything like that. So a lot of that was that, you know, childhood exploration of just investigating things and trying things out, and all of those things. The time we, you know, spent on the Swan River. I can remember swimming across it to what was the old colonial sugar refinery on the other side when I was 8 years old, and my parents being horrified that I'd gone that far, you know, across all the paths of the boats and whatever. But there was also the fishing in the river with my father, actually, and all of the observations of that, which hunting, fishing, like gardening, is this engagement where you've got some interest, objective, and often it sort of relates to the stomach, that sort of motivates that observation. But I think one of the other things I've looked back on is that although television came in when I was young, I grew up without it. And I think I have a view that the edited video image tended to scramble our pattern language, especially when young children and babies, when the patterning of their understanding of the visual world is being formed. And then you get this like chopped up sort of process that video inevitably is, that scrambles all of that. And it's one of the theories I have, that there is something lost with media technologies, especially when children are exposed to them very early. So the Steinerian idea that, kids shouldn't really see television when they're young, I think there's actually quite a lot of wisdom in that. We should do the things in the order of our development, including culturally, and that things that are sort of like really recent developments should be sort of taken on when all the foundation things are in place. So I think that was sort of, for me, a big part of that foundation.
Do you want to follow up there, Morag? I can hear you. I can see you.
I can see you. Oh, he's going to go. No, I think that's really, that whole notion of that pattern language, and I think that's such an important part of particularly as a child, having that natural formation of that, and this idea of being free to roam. And I saw there was quite a number of comments going through in the chat about the suburbs aren't disconnected from nature. And that's true. In many cases, they're not. I can attest to that too, from where I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, up on a hill where the only thing I could see was bushland, and that was my world. But I think what someone else noticed was that you notice things change quickly, and so it's the difference that makes a difference in our understanding. We see the patterns, and I think it's that sense of the pace of change. And being able to notice those patterns that are either being broken or enhanced, and seeing the either regenerative processes or the process of degeneration of that local creek, that thing that we loved. And I think there's something about when something you love so much gets broken or destroyed or chopped down, it hurts, like it's something really visceral about that experience. And so I think a lot of the comments that are coming in are really important, and that's part of like what motivates you to want to be such an observer, like what brings that out in you. I mean, that exploration is something that's a beautiful part, but there's something else that it fuels some flame in you to keep doing that, beyond your childhood explorations and cubby making and heading across the river.
Yeah, well, of course, jumping over all of those environmental catastrophes that you saw in childhood, and the changes and in growing environmental awareness and focus on the natural environment that led to meeting Bill Mollison and this huge gathering of information. And I suppose I really became, at that time in the 70s, a plant nerd, where I was just like identifying things and what's that and what's it doing and where's it growing. So in a lot of ways, botany became my sort of like pathway into reading landscape more strongly. I mean, different people come to it from all sorts of different directions, but for me it was the botanical, and of course the botanical diversity is incredible, and plants are largely sort of rooted to place, so they tell you something about that exact spot in the landscape. But I suppose that exploration of places where humans had done things and then more or less abandoned them, like old forestry arboreta and abandoned gardens, they became these sort of huge gold mines for the early permaculture ideas of seeing what's going on. So that passion for understanding that, but it was really in New Zealand after the publication of Permaculture 1 and meeting Hakaitane, who I regard as my second mentor in permaculture in a way, even though I was the published author of it, you know, going to New Zealand and also in a landscape that's just so completely different from Australia. And that really combined with this focus on, if you're going to do the sort of things that Dan was talking about, going out and advising people, apart from getting all the printed information and digital information and talking to old timers and whatever, how do you actually just absorb as you're there on the run and be able to give people something useful? So yeah, I came to the thing that this was actually the core skill, or one of the core skills of this task of being a permaculture designer, especially where you're doing it for other people in some sort of limited time frame.
I wanted to ask you about that too. Sorry to jump in again, Costa, but I wanted to ask you
not
about
at all.
that. The you know, when you're going out into a place that you're not familiar with, like what is that process of starting to read the landscape? Do you do some research beforehand in talking to different people, to reading plans and maps, or do you just, the first thing you want to do is actually just be on the land and seeing what speaks to you there? What is your process of that?
Yeah, it's been different at different times, and I think perhaps one of the most extreme of trying to squeeze all the information I could out of secondary sources was when my mother in her late 50s went and bought 180 acres of bush on the far south coast of New South Wales, and I thought I'd better go and help her and build a house that she could live in and set up gardens and stuff. And you know, neither of us were from southern New South Wales. I grew up in Western Australia and spent a lot of time in Tasmania. And I actually went back to Western Australia with her selling the family home. And I was going over the maps, the contour maps of the place, and looking through a few photographs that she had taken and sort of forensically grilling her about the property and just trying to understand it completely from secondary sources of information. And it was a really weird experience to drive down this bush track after traveling all the way across Australia and thinking, oh, I know what is it around that corner next, because I'd just gone so much into those secondary sources because that's all I had at that time. But then once camped on the land, just walked it and constantly living in it, trying to absorb all the things, including what are all these species of eucalypts. You know, there was 15 species of eucalypts on 180 acres, and there was a lot to learn, you know, from that. But I think it's different, you know, in different cases. It is great to just absorb a place without an agenda, you know, because I think that means you're not so sort of goal oriented or sort of driven by something. So a lot of reading landscape is really not about I've got to get the answers. It's about just the curiosity, and then over time you accumulate this wisdom where you can see things that give you some answers.
Is that, Dan, what you feel? Because you're not only looking through the lens, you're also looking at this bigger, well, I suppose production, in the sense of trying to capture the lightning as it's striking, as David is going about his business. You're sort of listening to what's going on, observing it as an individual and someone who's intimately interested in it, but at the same time looking at it from an editor's point of view and a producer's point of view. What's it like when you see these sparks coming when he's got his head to the grindstone and the sparks start coming out as he goes over a ridge and starts calling out, "Oh, look at the way the water tracks off to the gully and all of that." Give people a bit of an insight of what.
I'd love to. I mean, I'm getting excited just getting the flashbacks, and what I see is also like a shift in the being that David Holmgren is. Like, so he arrives, I remember time arrives, gets out of the vehicle, and then just sort of transforms into this reader of landscape, and suddenly it's just on, and he's like there's a very childish energy. He just comes alive as a person, and there's this childish energy of inquiry where like David just shared, there's just a genuine curiosity, and he's not attached to getting to the answers fast, or it's not about that. It's about, wow, a new landscape, a new place, and we're gonna get to know each other. And then one thing that I notice is he moves very well. He moves very fast. Like, he'll see a rock or something. Like, he'll say, "Hey, is that rock sedimentary or volcanic?" I'll be like, good question. And he'll kind of run up to it, pick it up, look at it, sniff it. He's touching it, so it's very tactile as well. Be like, "Oh, it's volcanic. Now, is that rounded due to chemical weathering or the action of water over time?" And then he'll look from the rock to other rocks and then to the creek, and then he'll drop it and he'll almost run. And David, the filmmaker, can talk later about the complexities of keeping up with the guy. We would get exhausted, but he'll run to the next point and stop, and as well as this pulsing movement of moving fast and then stopping, and constantly questions. Is this this? Is this? Does that mean this? Does this mean this? There's also this amazing sense of zooming in. So, like, you're zooming in, you'll reach down and pick up a tiny little gum nut. Whoa. Is that a candlebark or a manigum? What kind of eucalyptus is this? And then he'll zoom out and look at the tree, and then he'll zoom out and look at the 50 trees along the creek, and then zoom back in again. And then suddenly we're zooming in and out in time. He's like, "Well, that's a volcanic plateau that was formed 4 million years ago, and this is sedimentary soil 400 million years old." So it's quite amazing how I think of it as a process of tracking. Like seeing everything in the landscape as a trace or a track of the processes that created it. And David's going through those as like doorways or portals into the living geological and ecological formation processes that are still underway. And suddenly you're kind of in touch with that. And the whole thing comes alive. So it's an absolute thrill. Yeah.
I look,
just correct you there, Dan, about the 400 million years. Just like the gold miners understood that was the old country and the volcanic was the new country. But you're also combining, like, that figure obviously comes from geological, research that's actually aged those Ordovician sediments that make central Victoria, and so attach that number to it. And so there's obviously that blending of what you can see, what you can learn with what you hear from people and what you read and learn from secondary sources. Mm-hmm. So, it's putting those things together, of course.
Yeah.
There was a couple of questions that are coming through in terms of people who are not on broad landscapes, like in the city. And I guess, maybe weaving that in with your retro-suburbia work. Like, how does this process of observation differ for you? And I wonder too whether it's something that's more of a collaborative observation process of, with the neighbours that are working together. Or just want to talk a little bit about that, the retro-suburbia observation.
Oh, well, it reminds me perhaps of when I was living in Jackie's Marsh in northern Tasmania, out in the bush, and coming back to Hobart to visit some friends, and rocking up at their place with a big bag of walnuts and some apples and stuff, and they assumed I'd sort of brought them from the country. I said, "No, they're just in your suburb, just around the corner." You should learn what the local food resources are. So yeah, suburbia at that sort of simple level. Oh, where's the tree overhanging the fence that's dropping food on the paving, or it's all the same process. It's just clearly that what humans have done in the more managed landscapes are more of the part of the process, and they're part of the landscape too. So it's going along and looking. Oh, like that little strip in the grass was all sprayed 2 years ago, and now it's got flatweeds and whatever. Gee, some of them are edible, but do I want to eat them? It was sprayed 2 years ago. A million different little things that happen. So I think it's all is the same process, but there's certainly a masking of the underlying sort of natural water flow systems and all of these things. But you can of course learn to see them underneath too, and have that sense. And even in the simplest sense of, you see stories in the media after a flash flooding, and a wall of water came through the back door. Terrible experience for people, but yeah, people don't realise their house is actually in an old drainage line, and there's a pipe that the engineers have put in. But when that's succeeded, it just follows the landscape, and being aware of where you are all the time.
We had oh, sorry, go, Morag.
I was just going to say, I have another appointment, and I really am so sad to be leaving this conversation, but I have to go. So I just want to say goodbye. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Dan and David, for producing this amazing film. Thank you Costa, for sharing the conversation with me here.
Oh,
all right, everyone.
Pleasure, Morag.
Thanks so much,
you.
Morag. Awesome to have you here.
Amazing work.
Bye.
See you, Morag.
Now, David, just on that topic where you were going, there's been a couple of good questions here, one from Leslie and one from Paul that I thought I'd just throw in before, Dan, maybe we could throw to that video you were thinking of.
Yeah.
The first question was, David, this is from Lexi Meyer. Do you find that the owners of properties you're looking at, and that could be urban or, peri-urban, you're looking at, often have more knowledge than they know? Is it one of the skills, the ability to form the right questions and narrative to get the info from them? How does that play out?
Yeah, well, this is a big crossover into an area of work that Dan's focused a lot on, because there's the land side and the people side, and sort of dealing with all of that, of where people are at, what their values are, what they know that they don't realise they know. Yeah, that's certainly part of the process, but I suppose I would see it as sometimes certainly people are focused on things that maybe might not be so interesting, but they actually have amazing other insights. I remember talking to a woman who my mother met when she was developing that property, and this woman was a battler, fourth generation farmer, and we were there for afternoon tea, and she was telling us about all the relatives and all of the things, and I asked her a question about how they used to run the cattle in the bush, and she said, used to bring the cows in at the end of the winter, and they'd have their calves all healthy and from being in the bush. And she said, you couldn't do that now, they'd eat the indigo and die. And it was like this gem, like she was talking about effectively the changes in the vegetation that had happened. But it was just something, that's sort of obvious. But for me, it was sort of like, finding that special piece of information.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that answer. The responses from people, they're appreciating like this really nice follow up. And the second question was from Paul Bishop up in Brisbane, and he asked, how important is it for people to take time, make space as they interpret the remaining messages from those remnant landscapes? This is great, Paul, which still exist within our rapidly developing areas. Would love to see that kind of local First Nations connection and exploration as an education opportunity.
Yeah, well, the more developed the landscapes are, of course, the more important some of those remnants are. But there's also that they're usually places of, ironically, abandonment, you know, and it's a bit like the first beginnings of the conservation movement, and Hampstead Heath on the fringes of London, a sort of an abandoned bit of sandy country that where sort of, you know, down and out people hung out, you know, became this sort of seen as this place of nature. And so these places are often have this amazing mixed history and mixed attitudes to them. And sometimes that places, not so much the pristine places, but places where people have done things in all the different layering, and then to some extent have been abandoned, and nature has done its own wild thing. Unpicking all of those things and not immediately trying to say, oh, it shouldn't be what it is. We want to make it into something else. Because, you know, these places have often been made over and over again. So there's that balance between, oh, look, we have an amazing patch of remnant native grassland. Let's actually try and keep it weeded, and like the Bradley sisters, keep it close to what we think it was. Or here's just a place that's got this amazing jumble of things that no one values at all. Can we learn from what it is and what it's been through, rather than imposing what we currently think is the right thing to do?
Now, we interrupt this broadcast to announce, ladies and gentlemen, members of the panel, members of the audience, I interrupt this broadcast to announce that the fundraising has smashed its way through the $34,000 mark. So a big round of applause. Dan and David, who will be joining us shortly, and David, who of course is on screen, are very pleased, and thank you to all those people who have been contributing this evening. I just want to call out some of you. We've had donations from Fiona, Rachel, and Margaret. We've had donations from Ushi, Vanessa, Fazal, and Anna. Thank you very much. And we've had donations from Christine, Matt, Ruth, Jared, Sarah, Gabby, my bestie Dirt Girl, and Sue as well. So, wow, thank you. Thanks here also to Tao, Christine, Michelle, and Jill. And the final ones that have just come in, we've got Lucy, Hulbing, Emma, Jessica, and Lorraine. Thank you all so much for winding this along. I mean, it's just fantastic to see this. I'm watching this go along in the side view as we have this wonderful conversation. And Dan, I thought this would be a great chance for you to go to King Wally Otto in the soundproof booth and throw up another video. What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's do it. That could be a good segue into meeting the filmmaker himself. Another beautiful piece of his work. So this is just to introduce this one. Oh, so I'll turn that one off and I'll create another one.
Okay.
Stop screen. Just to introduce it. So during the one of our intentions for the film is to get across that reading landscape is for everybody. It's a natural part of what it means to be human, and you can do it at any age or any stage or whatever. And David Holmgren here mentioned a friend who's now become a mutual friend, young Woody, who was 8 years old at the time, the son of some lovely friends who call themselves Artists' Family, Meg and Patrick. And so David Meagher, the filmmaker, and I, we got out to their place and we got to know Woody, and he was just amazing. And this film was made out of mostly of just some sort of accidental footage we got along the way. And so we'll cut to it, and we'll see Woody sharing about some of the plants in his local landscape, including where his name Woody came from. All right, so share screen. Right, here we go. We got this. And so is that we seeing that? Is that good?
Yep.
Okay, I'll full screen it and away we go.
Stop! There's some plantain down there. There's some plantain down here. We told it this looks like that. And so this is what it looks like. It's got little ribs on the back, like little lines, so that's how you pull it apart. And you just chew it in half. Got a bit of a bitter taste. Well, get it out and say that was a cut, which I don't have any cuts on my hand at the moment. You just put it on like that and keep it there for about a minute. And then sometimes some people even put a band-aid on top of it. And yeah, hi, my name's Blackwood, but people call me Woody. And because I'm named after this tree, which is a fire retardant tree, you take some of the bark off and put it in your bath. And you've got a sore back or something. It heals your back, and also like shoulders and stuff. And so I'm named after this tree called Blackwood. It's a Blackwood tree.
Oh,
How cool is that? Such a legend.
is,
He just blew us
is.
away. Just amazing.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
So, what do you reckon? Do you want to bring David in, David Meagher in?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So, David, come join us, and Dan, you can take it from here and introduce Dave.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. So this is my dear friend and co-creator, collaborator, David Meagher, who I think we met through Adam Grubb, who I've done lots of permaculture stuff with, part of Very Edible Gardens. And Dave came along, did a permaculture design certificate course with us, and made a little video about the courses we could use on the website, and so we got to know each other. And then the friendship grew. And I mean, Dave, maybe Dave, you can introduce yourself and talk about your interest in this and how it all got started from your end.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you firstly to all the supporters and the major project partners. Awesome job. You can see your names on the website, by the way. If maybe we're not so up to date, we've got everyone from tonight, but up until tonight, you've got your names on the website. So thank you again for your generosity. Yeah, so I met Dan. I like to see myself as the novice in the team here. We've got all these great minds around permaculture and just, all that stuff. And I entered the world of permaculture not knowing anything about it. I had to look up what it meant when I went to the PDC. But I'm passionately drawn to it, and I want to learn so much about this stuff. And my job as a filmmaker enables me to do that, because not only am I filming, but I'm also editing the material that I'm filming. So I'm getting this kind of constant feedback loop of information, which is, a really great way to learn. So yeah, I met Dan in 2016 and at the PDC, and as he's already explained, he wanted to start filming. He'd already been filming some of David reading landscape on his phone. He wanted me to come in with my bigger, chunkier cameras, and then we got a lot of footage, and we said, what do we do with it? Let's make a film. So that's, I guess, how it began.
Yeah, I think Dave, I like the idea that you're coming at it without that background, because there's no like you're really independent, and you can actually bring a cut through that isn't, you know, using a knife that everyone knows and that could possibly cut it in the same way, and that I've learnt that a lot from having worked with many producers in television, and they don't know the top end from the bottom end of a plant, but they know what will cut, they know what will flow, they understand. And you know, one of the hardest things when I first started to get into it was, you know, you'd film for 2 days and it would get cut back and you go, well, where's the bit where what about, and but they go, yeah, but there was no scissor point and it was too long and they didn't say this, and there was, you know, and so it's nice because you bring a balance to the team that is incisive in different ways. David has incisive ways of reading the landscape. Dan is an incredible bridge to it all because he's an observer within, but also capable of droning up and bringing in people like yourself to carry out those other details. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see the three of you and hear about it from your angles, because that's what's going to make it successful, because it isn't a purely in-house thing that can get fogged because you just think people know this stuff, whereas you look at it and go, what the hell is a blackwood? You know, is that a tree, or is it a bench, or is it a 63 Ford, you know, called a blackwood? You know, whereas, you know, anyone in the Permi world can talk Permi talk and miss people, and that's not what it's about. And that's why we've got people watching tonight, to bring them in to David's perspectives, and you two are the vehicle to sort of bring it out to people. So it's lovely. It's lovely to see and hear the collaboration.
Well, I hope, you're absolutely right, Costa. And I think going back on something earlier about, I don't mean to talk about you too much, David, in these lights, but you do move very fast out there in the field. And it is very much the case that, as Dan was speaking about earlier, where, you know, I'm trying to set up a wide shot to establish what's going on, and then David walks up to a rock, he has a look at it, and then he's off again. And I've got my wide shot. I'm like, oh, David, I've got to get a close up. Come back. I'm like, you know, I'm filming that, and then he's off again. And, you know, we've got these radio mics on. I can't hear him because he's like now 200 meters away. And yeah, it was trying, but we've got some really good stuff. And I think that was the first one I'm thinking about. But after that, we worked as a team, and yeah, we've got a lot of really good material still to come. So very excited.
I did get a bit carried away a few times. It's not like I haven't worked with film production before and understand.
Yeah, of course.
Occasionally, when you start seeing new things that you haven't seen before, and as Dan said, you know, somewhere, you know, even though we're just on, you know, in central Victoria or on Judgerong country most of the time, which is where I've lived for, you know, longer than where I grew up on river. You know, you get very familiar with landscape and the patterns, but, you know, it's amazing. You know, you always find something new, something different when you know, explore a new little corner. And I think, yeah, we did that, and you captured that, you know, a few times there.
Well, hopefully we'll get to capture some more, David.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, Costa, you going to say something?
No, I was going to throw to you.
Yeah, beautiful. I just had the impulse to acknowledge the major project partners that are making a significant contribution and making the film possible, and we've got them all on the website readinglandscape.org, as well as all the individual donors. I just see a question there from Jenny. Where's the donate button on the homepage readinglandscape.org? It ought to be there. If it's missing, there's something wrong. But if you scroll down, hopefully you'll find it. So major project partners, Permaculture Tasmania came in early and strong, and they've been an incredible supporter. We're really excited to be partnering with them, and they'll be hosting the first screening of the film down in Tasmania, which is an important part of the location, an important part of David's Reading Landscape story. We've also got 6 other major supporters: Permaventures, Golden Egg Permaculture, Regenerative Landscapes Australia, Mark Matheson. We've got Morag and partner Evan with the Permaculture Education Institute, and Floji. So thank you so much for the support, and we've also got every individual person listed on the site as well that we're updating. So I just wanted to acknowledge enormous gratitude for the fact that, as Costa said, part of my role is bringing together the brilliant skills of the 2 Davids, reading landscape and filming reading landscape, and then standing back and sort of letting the magic happen. But we're also amazingly being able to bring together all these sources of support, without which the whole thing couldn't happen. So it's just beautiful to be a part of. Okay, I think it might be time for another song.
Well, I was just about to put that up there on the screen, like.
Nice.
and that tells me that it could mean only one person. And there. Oh no, where is he? Where is he? There he is.
Oh, hi.
Yes,
I can help out there.
Take it away, good fellow.
No worries. Look, this is fantastic. It's so good to speak to your various expertises, and that's something I love about the permaculture movement, is its diversity. And obviously David is the ultimate polymath, generalist, good at everything guy, especially when it comes to reading the landscape. But I love how all of our skills can come together to kind of create that larger landscape. And so I want to play a song for you guys all about the edge. I read before Sharon grew up in East Arnhem Land and Yolngu country, and what a wild and wonderful experience that was. I can relate, Sharon. I grew up in Yolngu country from a very young age, and it really helped. Living in those communities kind of helped me read the social landscape. There was a lot of formative stuff there. So there's many ways we can read landscape. I like doing it in a musical way personally, so this one's called The Edge. Some people tell me that I'm crazy, 'cause I do things that don't fit in with the rest of society. Like my love of small spaces, my room ain't too large. I just live in a box underneath the house off the corner of my garage. But the edge is where it's at, and it's easy to create. And my mama always said, if you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. Well, I've been looking to settle down, find someplace nice where I can get my hand on some marginal land and turn it into paradise. Well, the smaller the better, and I don't even care if it's bad. I guess I'm the kind of fella who'll always be a fringe dweller, just do the best I can with what I have. Because the edge is where it's at. Yeah, we gotta work that interface. 'Cause my mama always said, if you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. Well, I might wind up in the desert with whipping wind and sun, but I'll just plant me a hedge and I'll start my edge, and I'll have sorted 2 things with one. Oh, if the rain is a-falling and washing everything away, I'll slow down that water with a convoluted border, and everything gonna be okay. Because the edge is where it's at. Yeah, we gotta work that interface. 'Cause my mama always said, if you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. We're really on the edge right now, folks. We're up to $34,704. That means we've got 300 left till we reach the target. Good on you. Get on to readinglandscape.org and pledge now. Go in the running for the lottery. Well, make a pledge. Acknowledge the edge. Grow some veg and stack it on a ledge. Because wherever things come together, you'll find it getting better. You'll fall so in love with the edge, you'll want to write it a love letter. Come on. Broaden your range. Place of exchange. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Because there's every single color sitting between white and black. And a well-beaten path ain't no ways around track. Because the edge is where it's at. And I know we're all on the edge right now. Yeah, we're gonna see some change, see some things get rearranged, moving on, because there's no going back. I said the edge is where it's at. And there's no more time to waste. Cause like my mama always said, you're living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. Yeah, my mama always said, if you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. Thanks, I'll be back. Handing back over to you, folks. Cheers, guys.
Wow, thank you, Charlie.
Charlie, love it.
The crowd.
Congratulations, $300 to go. Woo!
We just blasted through it.
We have. Can I? It's going off. It's absolutely going off at the moment. Can I say that? Where was I? We got a special announcement. We are now up to $35,704.
High five.
We've got donations. I just want to announce the most recent donors because you are making it all happen, everyone, and it's just fantastic. So let me put them up here in the chat for everyone to see. We have Paulie. We have Paulie, Stephen, thank you, Lexi, Maria, Meg, Tracy, Ivan, Chris, Kirsty, Anita, Tony, Paul, Natasha, and Mark. Thank you all. We're just about clocked the $36,000 mark, and a special call out there to Selena Cheng, who came through, and she is a major sponsor because she's donated $1,000. So big thank you, Selena Cheng, and that's really pushed us over the line. But like anything, all of this is. I think it's reflective of ways that we can make a difference, and I'm seeing it here with this the support that's happening for Reading Landscape. I'm also involved with Jimmy Halfcut, who's currently raising money to buy back land, pristine rainforest in the Daintree that was subdivided back in the 80s to become some ludicrous residential allotments. And how do you fix this? Well, raise money and buy it back and give it back to the traditional owners. And they're currently in the half-cut month, and tomorrow's half-cut day, and they've raised they're closing in on $600,000, which will buy another couple of lots of this land, which is pristine rainforest. How long does that take? A lot longer than our lifetimes. And people donating a small amount, lots of people doing this are making the difference. So I'm really excited to think I'm part of this tonight. I'm part of Half Cut tomorrow. People, everybody, we are making a difference. And even with so much difficulty and negativity and heaviness around just the world at the moment, it seems almost hard to stick your head up and look ahead. It's beautiful to have a gathering like this today, and it's beautiful to know that people are teaming up and kids are going to braid their hair or colour their hair, and people are shaving their head, or they've grown half a beard, or they're shaving an eyebrow, and creating conversation and making these things happen. Just as this topic of reading the landscape, it's so much more than just reading the landscape. It's reading our home. It's reading our connections to community, our connections to country, our connection with history, and that this to me is all about, if you want to tie it right back to country and understanding country, this is reconciliation, because we are taking action to care for country, and by learning and understanding those skills, we then value, as David said, those pristine, those existing pockets, and then we can go to great lengths to join those pockets together. So, yeah, really, really exciting stuff. And whether it's through Charlie and his lyrics, whether it's through David and his passing on to us of the consonants and the vowels to read the landscape, or whether it's through David Meagher and the work that he does to document, or whether it's Dan and his skill to bring people together and to hold a vision, to hold space, and contain and focus the not just the vision but the action, and then all of you people jumping on and taking action. This is really wonderful. It really is.
Well said, Costa.
Beautifully put.
Sorry, I went a bit off piece there, but it was all becoming. I just reading the comments, watching the numbers grow, seeing people's understanding, hearing David talk about it, seeing David Meagher saying how freaked out he was trying to hang on like a box trailer, just flapping around at the back of a vehicle doing doughies. You know, and Dan saying, "Come on, you know, just follow."
Yeah,
you
move
know,
faster.
Yeah, exactly. What do you want to add, Dan?
Well, we did want to have a time for a bit of Q&A. I don't know if there's how it works. We also just had. Did you want to read out those last few donors? We've just gone over 36,000.
Oh, okay.
Which is unbelievably amazing.
Oh, here we go.
And just increases the scope, so people know what I mean. It's a piece of string thing, but we estimated what it would take to get the bare bones of the film made, and we're really excited that already, having exceeded that goal, new possibilities are on the horizon. For example, bringing in animation and more footage, road trips, and so on. So it's really exciting to know that we're going to be able to do more than we had originally hoped we'd be able to do. So thank you so much for everyone's contributions.
Okay, so here we go. The latest donors. Big thanks to Nan, Bridget, Karen, Lani, Julian. Hi, Julian. Hello, Jen. Georgina. Greetings, Georgina. How are you? Russell and Jackie. Thank you. And this is an interesting one for you, Dan. How else? This is from Andrew Keast. I'll just pop it up there. How else can we help beyond financial contributions? Good question.
Great question. Yeah. Well, I mean, filmmaking skills. What? Maybe David can chime in here, because I'm still yet to really. I'm learning as on my feet here about what it actually involves to bring a film together. But whatever it involves to bring a film together, we're going to have to do it all, right? So if anyone has any skills or ideas, very, very welcome to all kinds of collaborations and support. So get in touch with your ideas.
Anything to add there, Dave? Vince?
Yeah, no, not really. It gets confusing sometimes because Dan said David, and I thought maybe David as opposed to Dave might have something to say there. So, but yes, I totally concur, Dan. There's still a lot of shooting to be done, and I guess then post-production there'll also be color grading and sound mixing and all the the post sort of elements. So we're not quite there yet. And someone asked, when will the film be released? We were hoping for an early 2022 release, but with COVID and blocking us from getting further interviews underway, that may be pushed later into the year, unfortunately. But we will keep in touch with all the subscribers via the website and Facebook. So we'll let you know what's going on there.
Beautiful. I just saw a comment here from Joshua saying I'm a filmmaker and a producer, a real producer, as opposed to
hey,
whatever
what
I am.
No, come on, no downplaying.
A professional.
Yeah.
I'm getting there, but I'm an amateur for now. Happy to donate your time. It'd be really exciting to be in touch. Well, one thing that came to mind as Dave was speaking was that there's a lot of interest in this topic, which is fantastic. And we've had the idea of holding, like, the possibility for some sort of communities, online places where people can share their experiences in reading landscape and ask questions of each other. And that one of the blocks to that at the moment is the fact that there's just an admin overhead, that it takes time, and we've already got our hands full. So that was just an idea. If anyone out there is thinking, I've got some of those skills, I've got ideas about how you can host these kinds of groups, it'll be amazing if the film could help inspire focused conversations and sharing from around the world from different readers of landscape. So yeah, do get in touch. We really welcome ideas and collaboration.
Would you like me to throw up a few of the questions that are coming up on the feed?
Let's do it.
I just got a little cheerio there to Liliana. Hello, Liliana and Jody up there in Tamworth. Greetings from all of us around the country. We've got here we go. There's a question here. What Aboriginal communities are you thinking of bringing in to reading the landscape? Have you reached that level of focus?
Do you want to speak to that, Dave, first, or I can?
You're probably...
Well, you start, David. Maybe we can each chime in.
Yeah, I suppose, having lived mostly in southern Australia, in the places where the processes of colonisation and removal have been so complete, it's been interesting in central Victoria. It's only really been in the last 10 years that many people, including those of us who are sensitive to these issues, have actually known of who are the people connected to this land. Whereas when you go to Central Australia or Northern Australia, with those places less extremely colonised, obviously there's still that huge presence, and that rediscovery of connection to land is, a bit like the rediscovery of language. And of course, if I go back to when I met Bill Mollison, he had just completed the genealogies of the Cape Barren Islanders, who were recognised for the first time that they were Tasmanian Aborigines, because the story in everyone's head was all of the Tasmanian Aborigines disappeared. And now, of course, there's the rediscovery, the reconstruction of language, all of these things. So that's like this process with land too, this disconnection, and in a sense, all of us have been disconnected from land to varying degrees, and as migrant peoples, and so there's so many layers to that. And I think one of the things we have to be careful of is this projection onto Indigenous people who've struggled and survived as battlers in Australian society, and suddenly white society is expecting them to somehow have all of this somehow sort of intact knowledge. It's like, of course, they're going to save us from the pyrocene and the fire catastrophe too. Our hopes that cultural burning and all of this, whereas my understanding of these things is there's this journey of collective rediscovery from bits and pieces, and it's like I was saying about talking to someone and discovering they know something that they don't even know they know. So I think there's many conversations there, but I think that importance of recognizing disconnection, alienation, and not knowing where we are and what we're connected to is working for all of us at all levels. Because I think it's really important, not to see this as this completely esoteric thing, but it's something of a discovery and a rediscovery all the time, and that's where I think the strength of this film is. Of course, there's people with skills that relate to some of these areas, like Dan was saying about people who are tracking, and of course in Aboriginal culture that was something that for 100 years or more, the white world actually made use of, Aboriginal tracking skills that were sort of like magic, that some people had these skills to be able to look at a track and say, yeah, that happened how many hours or days ago. So the rediscovery, I think, is a process that's not just a matter of going to a person in a community and saying, "Oh, tell us what you know." It's how these things sort of unfold organically, I think.
Yeah, thanks, David. One thing I thought I'd mention is just it's a real key theme, something we're really passionate about, and we're proactively exploring possibilities for genuine organic dialogue and inclusion of this really important theme in the film, and that's actually something that if anyone has any connections or links or ideas, we'd welcome as well.
David, we had a question here from Fazal. Can you elaborate a little bit on the contemplative awareness aspect of reading landscape and how it feeds in?
Yeah, well, I suppose as someone who's sort of by nature and growing up, I'd describe myself as a super rationalist. And working with Pakotane in New Zealand, although he was a geographer and expert in the lands department, doing all the land systems analysis of parts of the high country of the South Island, and understood all these sort of different formal ways of knowledge. He said out on the job, doing those land system study, it was, the first cup of tea around the campfire, in the morning, looking at the sun coming up, the things where your mind is really just freewheeling, and that it's really a meditation, and you're definitely not goal oriented, and that sometimes the things that come in those times are the most precious ones, where you get past maybe some of the blocks that have been stopping you being aware of something, or you have a sense in some internal emotional way, what people might say as an intuitive connection. Now, another side of me has always been a skeptic about that. You go out on property with people and they say, "Oh, this, we just knew when we came to this property it was the perfect place for us." I say, "Yes, lovely spring day." There's distinguishing for me between that superficial emotional reaction to something and a deep inner intuitive awareness. On the outside, it's sort of hard to unpick those things because they all blend into one another. But I think there are things that come with that deeper awareness or detachment, what I'd call contemplative awareness.
Now, as we roll along, thanks for that answer, David, and thanks for all the questions, everyone, and thank you for this continuous stream of connection. It's just been wonderful reading your comments, and they're not just comments; they're actually really beautifully invested involvement. And we might take one more of those, but before I do that, thank you to Simon, Christine, Liliana, Kim, and Nina, and a big shout out to Joshua Collins from Acres and Acres, who has donated $1,000 as well, which I think makes them I was reading in the thing there.
A major project partner.
A project partner, yeah. Yeah, congratulations. But as I said earlier, every single investment in this is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And, you know, whether it's in this side of it or as someone offered their time, these are all incredibly valuable offerings that this evening is all about. So thank you very much. We're going to take one more question. And I thought maybe, Dan, I like this one from Mark Allen. What might be one or two of the most powerful questions you can ask about a landscape?
Beautiful. Mark Allen rings a bell because his name has appeared more than once in the list of donors. So I believe this is probably the Mark Allen who I think has donated on at least 3 separate occasions. So thank you so much, Mark. Absolute legend. And also been really active in sharing the news about the film in your local community. The first one that comes to mind for me, which I actually absolutely love, and in some ways trumps all the others, is this question: is who is this place? So the idea of immersing in the place as a being in its own right, you know, and basically, who are you? Who is this place? And developing that contemplative awareness and the humility and so on, to enter into that conversation. And a related question, and I think of these as kind of sacred questions, is what is going on here? What is going on here? And really just exploring the different layers of that question and where that can take you and all the sub questions inside of it. So that's what arises for me. But starting with the right questions that are big enough to hold the journey, because it's so easy to ask questions that get too small too fast. So anyway, what a great question you asked, Mark. So thank you for that. Now I know I just want to mention we've got another song lined up, and we also want to do the prize draw. So
yes, okay. Well, time for a song. That must mean just one person. That has to mean one person. And David Holmgren's going to pull out his uke now. Sorry, Charlie. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing the crowd. They're getting excited. There he is. Hey, you're
me
back.
to play a song.
Yeah,
I thought it was Dan's turn. Look, yeah, thanks again, guys. This is fantastic. You know, you are now up to $37,852. That's unbelievable. I mean, from the beginning of this session, where it was 33, 34, you've raised it up to above and beyond the goal. And I just think that's testament to how much the world needs this right now. You know, the more we have this knowledge getting out there into a more mainstream kind of arena, the more hope the world has, I think, of getting through the challenges that are coming thick and fast. And you know, we've had questions about the intersection with climate change. And, you know, it's all about observation. It's all about reading the changes and the landscape and observing the patterns. And so I'd like to finish. Before I start, though, I just want to let you know that this is the last chance. This is your last chance for the prize draw. If you want to go in the running to get $150 worth of books in the permaculture pack, we've got Retro Suburbia, the hefty tome, David's latest permaculture book on design in the suburbs. So exactly what some people have been asking about, reading the landscape in an urban setting. Amazing, chock full of goodness book. 470, which is like a post-permapocalypse climate thriller. Amazing novel from Linda Woodrow. Permaculture Pioneers, which obviously is a history of permaculture and from the perspective of its pioneers, including David Holmgren, Bill Mollison, and others who really helped to kick it off. And The Flywire House, about resilient kind of fire-friendly design. So that's your call, folks. Jump in the draw now. Pledge if you haven't done so already at readinglandscape.org. Let's take this to 40 grand. Let's take it to 50 grand. The more we spread this, the more the world is going to know about these skills that we have almost lost. So, thank you so much again to all of you for really promoting this and really getting, tapping into the knowledge of people like David and the Indigenous elders that are, just still holding on to this knowledge. I think now is really the time to get it out. So on that note, here's a song about patterns. And Stacey before mentioned Noel Nannup. I actually went for a walk with Uncle Noel Nannup, a Whadjuk Noongar elder down here in southwest WA a few months ago. And, it was a really beautiful experience just getting a different perspective on this landscape where I live from the perspective of a Whadjuk Noongar elder, and reading those patterns that you just sometimes don't know are there. So this one's called Patterns. Thanks for having me, folks. I wake up every morning. Every night I go to bed. Like everybody I was born in. Like everybody someday I'll be dead. Like the sun rising and the sun going down. It's all working with pattern that keeps the whole thing going round. Yeah, round, around, round. It's just the way it happens. Yeah, round, around, around. It's always in pattern. Yeah. You've got to see the bigger picture before looking at the small. 'Cause if you can't see the forest for the trees, then you're not really seeing at all. And before you do anything, good to know how it's done. Work from a pattern to the details. You'll be halfway there before you've even begun. Yeah, round, around, around. Well, they'll tell you what you need to know. From what the weather's doing, if there's rain a brewing, to how to make your garden grow. We can rely on patterns, yeah, and you can learn them faster. Train your brain to retain them. Become a pattern master. Yeah. Like a tessellated Camarillo. Or maybe a spiral full of herbs. Or that Fibonacci geometry in broccoli. Yeah. Or even all of these rhyming words. It really blows my mind. The way it's all designed. Oh no, I'm not religious, but it's still prodigious. All these patterns in this world of mine, they go around, around, around. In a dynamic relationship with all the answers at your fingertip. Whoa, life's just one big Mobius trip. And if you can disprove patterns, well, I'll eat my hat on. Maybe make my habitat into a room full of pattern in downtown Ballarat and just talking scat. Thanks for listening, folks. My name's Charlie McGee. Check out the Permaculture Rhymer's Manual album if you want to hear more songs about pattern language and permaculture. And right now, I think it's time, the moment of truth. Drum roll. Dan Palmer is going to draw the prize. Are you ready, folks?
Here we go. Here we go, Dan.
Here we go. Okay. Are we seeing the number picker wheel?
I'll bring it up. Let's get the wheel. Let's get the wheel. Oh, this is it. Give us. Oh, we don't need full screen on the wheel. That's good enough. We need to see David's face and my face when someone wins.
All right. So as of like 30 seconds ago, there was 390 donations. We've got them all in a spreadsheet from 1 to 390. I'm going to click spin, and we're going to get a number, and then we're going to see what number row that corresponds to, what person that corresponds to, and they have just about to win the hamper. So away we go. It's spinning. It's slowing down. It's slowing down, and
279.
279.
179. Okay.
That's a recent one. That's a recent one.
That's pretty recent. Okay, I'm scrolling. I don't have to scroll up too far for that one. So I've got the spreadsheet here. 279 belongs to one Emma Birch.
Hey!
Who donated on the 28th of August. Donated $31.58. Thank you so much, Emma, and you are the winner. We'll be in touch. We'll send you an email and organize getting you your permaculture books.
Thank you, Emma.
Oh, well, there it is. Emma Birch cleans up. Do you realise there was a comment earlier, with the exception of Charlie being in his studio, but someone cryptically said, Costa, you need books. so you know, I'm kind of like I got some magazines. I've put a couple of magazines up there between the gnomes. So I'm not looking very studious and academic here, but I do have the gnomes there. You know, David, you're looking a bit. You know, there's definitely a gnome deficiency going on in Hepburn there, David. So I think I'll send you one. But Emma Birch, congratulations. You will not have a shortage of books, and when we bring you in on a live, you'll be able to show us that new section of your bookcase that will be filled up. And I must say, Emma, something that David Suzuki said to me when I was fanboying while I was an undergraduate, and I went and saw one of his talks at the Opera House, and I stood in the queue, and it took about an hour, and then I sat down and I said, oh, David, this is great. I'm going to put it in my library. And here I was at the Oracle expecting a great comment, maybe. And David looked up at me and he said, don't put it in your library, read it, which I thought was really nice. I thought that was really nice because it's not about having a big collection. It's about running it through the filter and then putting it out there. So you go for it, Emma, and read all those books. That's awesome. So, wow. I'm just wondering, Osti, do we have a here we go.
My gosh.
Just crossed the $39,000 mark.
Wow.
With $1,000 contribution from Pip Magazine. So big thanks to Robin and everyone at Pip for becoming a major sponsor. That's just fantastic.
Well, you'll be able to get a Hollywood producer on board with it the way you're going, Dan. This is going straight to the big screen, mate.
Well, I'll just share that I just saw a message come through to me from Neil Willman. Dan donated. I have a film company. Let me know how I can help if you need it. So pretty exciting to have that being an outcome of this call, making connections to sources of that sort of support as well. So, wow, I'm just blown away. I didn't know what to expect, and it's been incredible. Yeah.
Dan, is it a good time to let people know that this is going to be a free resource? Like we are making this film. It's not to be sold.
Osty, let me bring you in because you're just like the voice of God there in the background.
Yay.
Thank you, Osty. Thank you for doing all the background stuff. Yeah. So
keep going, Dave.
Hi, everyone.
So our intention of making this film is not to have something that you're going to buy from somewhere. This will become a resource for the community everywhere, for people everywhere. So all this money will hopefully feed back into the big picture.
I like to think of the film project as ultimately creating a gift for the universe.
Mm.
And it's happening.
Well, there's wonderful things coming in. So we just go round the. What say we go round the block, and get a final comment from. Ossie, are you right to go back into? Or are you happy to hang there? You can.
I'm happy to hang here.
Yeah, you hang there. You've been doing wonderful work behind the scenes.
All night.
Here we go. That was a fantastic evening. Thanks, Margaret Masakovska. Lovely generosity and thanks, Paul. Good discussion tonight. There's wonderful comments. Thanks for all your comments, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it's all coming in. So let's go around the block, and we'll start with David Meagher, and then Dan, and then David. You can wrap it up, or we'll go round. We'll go anti-clockwise. We'll go David, Dan, and out. What do you reckon? So
is that
Dan,
Dave or David? Who's first, Dave or David?
David Meagher, you're first.
All right. Okay. Thank you to all sponsors. Thank you to all supporters. Much appreciated. The film at this stage we're hoping to release early 22, but it's probably going to be pushed later in the year due to COVID. And we are making this a free film. So thank you again for everyone's generosity. Thanks, Charlie, too.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll bring Charlie up so he can he can be part of the final one.
Yeah. And yeah, I am incredibly grateful, especially firstly for Dan just sort of pushing this whole project and just keeping in contact with me. Hey, how about we go out and do stuff? And Dave Meagher's just been fantastic to work with and so steady on it. And to just see Osty, who works with us in Holmgren Design, Melior Publishing, just in all that mix, working with Dan to, the incredible website. And of course, it's always fantastic to work with my good mate Charlie and Costa on your new platform. It's new to me. The idea that you're supposed to be the star, you run all this platform as well.
Oh, look, I just there's some pretty awesome pieces on the chessboard. I was just pushing them around a little bit here and there, hoping for the best. Just sort of just push that one this way and this one that way and another one that way. No, it's David.
And of course, Morag in on it. It was really, really fantastic. All the people who've contributed, and the folks at Permaculture Tasmania for coming through in the beginning as a major sponsor, and to anchor this back to where really my passion for reading landscape and permaculture were born in Tasmania, I think is incredibly appropriate.
Thank you, David. And Dan?
Thanks, Costa. Yeah, I mean, this project come from me having an impulse, just a strong sensation that I couldn't not let this thing happen. Like the possibility emerged, and it's like, this needs to happen. The universe needs this film. I seem to be in a position to support its creation. And I've noticed along the way that there's been some anxiety or nervousness. Is like, I know it needs to happen. I know it's important. Is the universe going to care? Is it going to give us stuff? Is the wider community going to care? And so I'm just feeling so overwhelmed and so much joy that it's just such a resounding yes for the larger community. And that also that we've been able to pull together enough funding to make an amazing film happen in-house. We haven't used a third-party crowdfunding platform or whatever that this has been possible. So I'm just really happy, really delighted, and grateful to be part of the team. Thank you.
Well, just before we go, we've had some more donations. I'd like to give a big call out to Roisin, Edward, and Dogoberto, as well as Lance from Food Scraping. Lance Lieber from Food Scraping here in Bondi. Good on you, Lance. And also from Kathy in Thailand. So we've had some international audience coming in and supporting the project as well, which is fantastic. Question here: will the donation link be open a bit longer?
Mm-hmm. Well, so our intention is that it will remain open as the film progresses and as we figure out what it actually involves and so on. So yes, it will.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I think if everyone has had their final wrap, I'll wrap things up and say a big thank you to all of our speakers, as David and Dan said, to Morag, who was with us from the start.
Love it, Morag,
of course.
thank you.
Yeah. She's busy doing it. And I noticed there was a few comments along the way saying, "Oh, I'm torn. I want to go to Morag's talk, but I want to stay here." So we were dragging the community, which is wonderful. I think that's brilliant. I love that sort of stuff. Thank you to Morag. Thank you, David Meagher. Thank you, Osti, for all the work behind the scenes. Thank you, Charlie, for just being everywhere and popping up and sharing your gift of music, which is such a wonderful disarmer and such a wonderful community hugger, because you bring people together with the heartbeat and then the lyrics and all of that connection. So it's always a pleasure to have your input in your inimitable way. So big thank you to you, Charlie. And finally, David, thank you for being a part of this today and for allowing this project air to breathe. And by the sounds of it, clearly people have spoken. They're backing it, and like, I really speak on behalf of everyone when I say can't wait to see this project come through the hands of the production and be out there for all of us to share and learn from and put together our vowels, consonants and sentences to read landscape better and better as our lives move down the road. So big thank you. And finally, to all of you out there, thanks for sharing this broadcast in advance. Thank you for being part of it. Thank you for all of your comments from people up in Brisbane, over in WA. There's people in Melbourne. There's people in northern New South Wales, Sydney, and all around the world. Thank you for being a part of it, and watch this space for more information on reading landscape in the future. But from me and all of the team at Reading Landscape, have a great evening. See ya.
See you all.
Ciao.